Hi, everyone. Hello, hello. I'm seeing so many of you pop in. This is fantastic. Thank you for joining us this evening. We're going to get started very, very shortly. I'm going to give about, 35 seconds just for anybody who was waiting to pop on to pop on. So we are super excited this evening to be talking about tuition, fees, and payments, all that good stuff, all those things that students usually have a ton of questions about. So we're here to really just provide you with not only an overview of what is going to be coming at you in the next few weeks, few months, but also to really take the time and answer your questions and make sure you feel ready to rock for September. So we are on Zoom tonight. I know most of us are probably familiar with Zoom at this point after those few years of exclusively meeting people on Zoom. But just to kind of reiterate again, if you were asking a question this evening, we ask that you use that Q&A box at the bottom, and we'll be monitoring that regularly as we go throughout the presentation. Please don't hesitate to ask a question. We have people working the back end, making sure that all of those questions that come up get answered. We ask that you don't post any personal information, however, in the Q&A boxes, like your name or your program or your address, sorry, your name and program together. You can post your program just because this is going to be public afterwards, and we want to make sure we protect your privacy as much as possible. Before we begin, I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge that Lakehead University respectfully acknowledges its campuses are located on the traditional lands of the Indigenous people. Lakehead Thunder Bay is located on the traditional lands of the Fort Williams First Nations, signatory to the Robinson Superior Treaty of 1850, and Lakehead Aurelia is located on the traditional lands and territories of the Anishinaabe. The Anishinaabe include the Ojibwe, the Ottawa, and Potawatomi nations, collectively known as the Three Fires Confederacy. Lakehead University acknowledges the history that many nations hold in the areas around our campus and is committed to a relationship with First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people based on the principles of mutual trust, respect, reciprocity, and collaboration in the spirit of reconciliation. My name is Taylor Reimer, and I am a recruitment officer here at Lakehead University, and I also lead the college and university transfer recruitment. I was very excited to see that we had a lot of transfer students on this evening. So hello, I'm the person that has been sending you emails. I'm going to pass it over to my colleagues to introduce themselves. Samson, I believe you're up first.
Hi, everybody. My name is Samson Bush, and I work in accounts receivable. If you've ever been on campus, you may have seen me at the front desk. I'm here to help you out with your tuition, if you have any questions with making payments and all that sort of thing.
Awesome.
My name is Chris Gallinger. I also work in the accounts receivable office. I'm the international accounts officer here at Lakehead. So I deal mainly with international students, their payments, their billing. If you're a sponsored student, I also facilitate sponsor invoicing. And I also administer the UHIP plan. So if you have international health insurance, then you've probably talked to me at some point.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Samson and Christopher, for being with us this evening. We are super excited to learn from you and get to borrow your expertise for the next hour or so. On the call this evening, we also have Abby Rose Arnold, who is a recruitment officer based out of our Thunder Bay campus, and she's going to be monitoring that Q&A box for us. So at this point, you probably have heard a little bit about Lakehead, but just in case you haven't, Lakehead University is one of Canada's top 10 universities, and we're in the top 5% in the world of undergraduate institutions. We're also the top 2 undergraduate research university and #1 for non-for-profit research income. One of my all-time favorite facts about Lakehead is that we give away over $11 million in scholarships and bursaries every year. And we actually have the ranking of #1 in Ontario right now for this. So I'm sure as we get into tuition fees and payments this evening, we're going to hear a lot about that, but know that you're coming to a great institution for all of that equity in education. We have 65 plus different programs at Lakehead, and 82% of our classes have less than 50 students, which really means that you have the ability to get to know your professors, to get to know who you're sitting beside in class, and really grow in a community. When I was in undergrad or coming into my undergrad program, I didn't really understand why universities talked about their class sizes. But let me tell you, when I was in my 4th year and getting ready to apply to graduate school, I had friends applying to professional schools, that kind of stuff. It made such a difference knowing who my professor was and not just being a number to them when it came time to get things like recommendation letters, when it came time to sit down and ask them their advice, all of that good stuff. So Lakehead really offers you an incredible opportunity to get to know your professors, to get to know your classmates, and to be part of something really exceptional and unconventional throughout your undergraduate career. So I'm super excited to talk about tuitions, fees, and payments this evening. I'm going to pass it over to Samson and Chris now.
All right, guys, so I'm going to be presenting the first part of the presentation on tuition fees and payments. If you go to the next slide, we're hoping to cover what we consider the 3 biggest questions we get, the most frequent questions we get regarding the tuition fees. So first is, how much is my tuition? The total cost for the year. When do you need to pay by? And how do you make your payments? So before I get rolling here, the first thing I want to say is that all the information here, it is also available on our website. So if you go to www.lakeheadu.ca, and you could find our fees page, and it'll have all the information you need. So next slide. So student tuition fee information, this is going to be for the upcoming 2023 fall winter term. So that term runs from September all the way till April. And full-time undergraduate tuition for Canadian students or permanent residents ranges from, you can see the figure there, it's $7,300 to $97 for a first-year student. This depends on the program you're in, obviously. This doesn't include the law program. So like I said, if you visited our webpage, you would be able to find the schedule of academic fees. So when you're at this portion of our website, you'll see that it's broken down between undergraduate and graduate students. So if you go to the next page, right here we have the breakdown between full-time versus part-time. So students are considered part-time or full-time depending on the credit weight of the courses they take during the main school year. So FCE means full course equivalent, and this reflects the number of credits that a student is taking. We have a flat tuition rate for 4.0 FCE, so 4 credits or greater, which means if you were to take 4.5, 5 credits, 6 credits, you would still be billed the flat tuition rate. Full-time students, you have to be registered in 4 credits between both fall and winter terms. This doesn't include the spring-summer term. Also, a full-time undergraduate student will be charged certain ancillary fees, such as the LUSU medical insurance and the bus pass, also from LUSU. So full-time students are automatically charged these. You don't have to seek out the bus pass or anything. If you're a full-time student, it's automatically billed to you. Now, if you're a part-time student, you're not automatically billed the bus pass or the LUSU medical insurance. You would have to opt into that separately at the LUSU office. Part-time students are also not billed a flat rate. If you're registered in less than 4 credits between the fall and winter terms, you're billed per course. And again, if you were back at our website, and we will go over this later. You can see what the breakdown looks like. Next slide. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention back there, where it says part-time students are subject to the refund policy and schedules. That just means that when you're registered let's say you're registered in more than 4 credits, if you were to withdraw, like drop 1 credit, it doesn't really change the tuition amount until you drop below that 4.0 credits. So a student registered in less than 4 credits will always, if they add or subtract courses, they're going to see the payment, the total owing fluctuate. This is what it looks like on our website here. So you see you can select your citizenship status, whether you're a Canadian or permanent resident or an international student. Academic year, you can usually look 1 year back, but all the past years are available, archived on our website as well. You can select whether you're at the Thunder Bay campus, the Aurelia campus, or the George and Barrie campus. And you can also see a program there, the term, and the attendance level, whether it's full-time or part-time. So in this case, this is just a full-time arts program here. You can see that there's the 2 installment amounts and the total. It breaks down the tuition and ancillary fees as well. So tuition's the main the tuition portion of your fees. Ancillary fees we'll get to in a moment. And the installment amounts also, those are if you're choosing to pay in 2 installments rather than 1 installment upfront. So you heard me say ancillary fees. These are fees that are automatically billed to students. They're linked to their tuition, to their courses. They support services around campus. So the athletics, if you get to use the athletic facilities there, you can use the gym, the hangar, the Wolf Den. Health services, you can see a doctor right on campus. You don't have to go off campus for that. And there's also student union fees associated with that. We mentioned earlier the LUSU medical dental plan. So this is automatically built to full-time students. If you have a parent who has coverage already, say they have their own plan and it's basically the same as the LUSU's plan, you are able to opt out of it. But it is the student's responsibility to do that. You would have to go to the website and do it before September 30th. So that's website there is lusu.ca. Bus pass, you can also opt out of it if you live outside of a transit area during the fall winter term, or if you have other means of transportation due to a disability. Next slide. Due dates. So I mentioned earlier there were 2 installment amounts. Those are if you're going to be paying in 2 installments. These are the 2 due dates. So August 15th, by this time, your first installment for undergraduate students, graduate students should be completed. If you're paying the full balance instead of installments, you would pay the full balance by August 15th as well. If you're choosing to pay in 2 installments, December 15th is where the remainder of your fees, when the remainder of your fees is due. So undergrad students pay your second installment. If you're a grad student, you pay your term fee. Basically, you should have a 0 balance after December 15th. Next slide. So how to pay your tuition with OSAP. This is a little tricky. If OSAP is going to cover the entirety of your tuition fees, you don't have to make a payment, even though your OSAP isn't going to arrive until quite a bit later, usually within the first weeks of school. When you apply for OSAP and it's confirmed, you're given a notice of assessment. They give you a letter. You can send this to Lakehead University so that we know the amount you're getting and the release date. If there's any remaining amount that you're getting that doesn't go to the university, that's not for fees, it goes directly to the student. So if OSAP doesn't cover your full fees, what you would do is deduct from your first installment amount the total amount of OSAP you're receiving for the fall term, and you would pay any difference by August 15th. So if you know the amount of tuition you owe for the fall and you know the amount of OSAP you're getting for the fall, all you have to do is pay the difference by August 15th. Same with the second installment. If you know the amount of OSAP you're receiving for the winter term and you've already registered and you know how much your fees how much fees you're owing. You just have to pay the difference for the winter by December 15th. So I'm going to pass it over to Samson now, and he'll continue.
All right, so how to pay your tuition with awards. If you're going to be receiving awards, scholarships, or bursaries, those would be confirmed by Student Central if you're an undergrad student, or grad funding if you're a graduate student. So typically your awards will be confirmed prior to the start of the term. If your awards fully cover what you owe for tuition and fully cover the balance in your account, you don't have to send us a payment. As long as your awards are all confirmed, you can just wait for those to come in and pay your balance, even if they come in after that due date that Chris was just talking about. So very similar to OSAP. So if your awards are only partially covering the balance that you owe, what you would have to do is just deduct that amount that you know that you're going to get, and you only have to pay that difference. So the difference that you owe would just have to be paid prior to the due date. So if you're not fully covered for fall, you'd pay the rest before August 15th. You would leave that remaining balance owing until the scholarship comes in. And same for the winter term as well. So you would just have to pay whatever is not covered by your awards and just wait for the awards to pay the remaining amount. If you're paying in two installments, so you're paying the fall at the August deadline and the winter at the December deadline, you might notice that your scholarships and your awards are divided between these terms. So just keep that in mind. If you're quoted an amount that you'll receive for your scholarships or your awards, you might receive a portion of that for fall, and then a portion of that will be held in winter. But you'll be able to see that on your account if that's the case, and we'll get into that on the next slide. All right, and so this is just a preview of a page that you can access through your student portal. It's called the My Fees and Funding page, OSAP Awards and Installment Amounts. This is a really good page to reference if you want to see all of your charges and a summary of your incoming funding, such as OSAP or your scholarships and awards. And this is also a good place for you to check and see what you have owing, if anything, after all of that. So we'll run through a couple of hypothetical examples. But before we get into that, I just want to let you know where you can find this. You can find this in your student portal. So you would log into my portal. On the sidebar, you want to click the financial information tab. You want to select student finance, and then right there in that sidebar, there will be the option for the My Fees and Funding page. So the nice thing about this page is that it does break down your fall installment and your winter installment for you, so you can see what you owe for each term. So if you look at the little circled title there, the fall 2023, so that would be what this student owes for just the fall term. So it takes the total tuition and it tells you exactly what amount of that is due for fall, including ancillary fees and other charges. So if you're charged that bus pass or the medical insurance that Chris was mentioning earlier, that's in that ancillary fees / other charges category. And then below that, you can see that this student also will be receiving OSAP. So they'll get a portion of OSAP that's a loan and a portion that's a grant. So it's in the pending category because this is what their anticipated payment will be. You'll be able to see that on My Fees and Funding before it's actually received by Lakehead. So it lets you sort of plan your payments in advance and know how much of your fees are going to be covered. If you were receiving any awards or scholarships or anything like that, once they're confirmed, you'd be able to see this on My Fees and Funding as well. There's a section that's for pending awards. And then once that's actually applied to your account, that amount would move to the awards and scholarships line. So you'll be able to see it in there. So if you look at the fall term, in this example student, so they're receiving OSAP. It looks like it's not quite enough to cover the balance that they're owing, so they'll have $187.70 left over. That's the amount that they would have to pay before that August 15th deadline. In the winter term, so that would be the next column over, they're receiving some OSAP again, same amounts. This would be their second installment for what they are approved for, and then they're also approved for a $500 scholarship. So you might notice that the total balance at the bottom for this term is a negative number, negative 312.30 cents. So that means that they're actually going to be receiving more funding that they need for this term. So they'll have a little bit of a credit at the end of the semester. So if you ever see a negative balance in your account, don't worry, that means that you've overpaid or you've received extra funding. Next slide, please. So there's a lot of other things that you can find on your My Portal that you may find useful. Other than the My Fees and Funding page, you can also see all of your account details. So if you've made any payments towards your account, you can click in there and see the receipt and get the PDF of that if you need that for your study permit or visa application. You also can see a statement of your account. So if you need a PDF with our official logo and everything on there, you'll be able to download that self-service through My Portal. So all of that information is on there, very easy to find. If you ever need any help with it, just reach out to us and we can sort of guide you to the right spot. Next slide, please. This is an example of what your statement would look like. So they can be a little bit tricky to read. Again, if you ever need help reading them, just reach out to us. We are more than happy to kind of explain everything to you and just to review your account and make sure it's all accurate. So what you'll see just sort of generally when you do look at your statement is you'll see the breakdown of all of the ancillary fees. So that would be the lists that you see charged on September 6th. There's the LUSU fees, computer enhancement, athletic fees, and that sort of thing. And then you also would be able to see your tuition charge. So it'll show you the total that you're charged for tuition for the fall and winter semesters. And then you'll also be able to see right up at the top underneath the statement date, the amount that's left to pay. Any payments that you make will show up on here as well. It's essentially a summary of all of the activity that is going on in your account, including things like the OSAP payments that you receive. And if you have any residence charges, that would be on there as well. So all of your charges from Lakehead will show up on your student account sort of in general. Next slide, please. So payment methods. If you are a domestic student and you will be paying from within Canada, you have quite a few different options of how to pay your account. Pay My Tuition is the newer platform that we highly recommend. So with Pay My Tuition, you can click in there and there's a whole bunch of different options that you can use to pay with. Online banking is also highly recommended. So if you have online banking, you can go right onto your online banking app and you would just have to set up a bill payment to Lakehead University. You would just, for the account that you have to pay, you would just type in your student ID number and it would send a payment directly to your student account. You can also use a pre-authorized debit card or a credit card. You do that online through your student portal. And if you're on campus, we do take debit card, check, or money order. So you can pay right up here at the counter with us. Other ways of paying your account, of course, is OSAP or federal and provincial student aid, scholarships, awards, and bursaries. And if you're a grad student, you can pay with your GA, so your graduate assistantship and funding. Next slide, please. Thank you. If you're an international student, the options are a little bit different than for a domestic student. The payment platforms that we recommend is Pay My Tuition and Western Union Convera. So the way you would find these platforms is on our website. There's a link where you can go directly to these payment options. You would just have to type in, well, the easiest way to find them is to go to our search bar. You can either search payment methods or how to pay student fees, and that will bring up the full list of payment methods and direct links into Pay My Tuition and Convera. So those are the best ways to send us payments if you are paying internationally. You can also pay with credit card again online through our portal. And then if you're paying on campus, we do accept Union Pay, but otherwise the debit cards, we can only accept Canadian debit cards. So just keep that in mind if you do come in the office to pay. The only international debit card that we can take is Union Pay. Other than that, very similar to domestic students, you can receive your scholarships or awards or bursaries for your funding, as well as a GA and graduate funding if you're a graduate student. Next slide, please. All right, so we're gonna open up to questions. If anybody has any questions, you can either drop them in the chat or you can reach out to us here.
Hi, Samson. We've just been monitoring the chat as we go throughout this evening. So far, I would say most of the questions are around where to apply for scholarships or bursaries. Abby, if you want to go ahead and maybe link the entrance scholarship page when you have a moment. And Samson, maybe you would like to talk a little bit about our My Awards My Awards portal.
I'm not too familiar with the My Awards portal, so Chris, feel free to jump in if you're more experienced with that.
Yeah, so this would just be the portion where you can see what awards you've been that you received or that are pending for the year on my services.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's a very cool portal, in my opinion, for Lakehead students to be able to use, because you can see scholarships that are not only advertised by the university, but also by various community partners of us, different organizations in the surrounding area. So you get access to that through your My Service, My Info account as well, too. So lots and lots of different opportunities to not only get funding through the university, through things like entrance scholarships, to take advantage of things like OSAP, but also to reach out to other scholarships with other community partners. I see
A question here. Sorry, Taylor.
I was going to say, I see your chat box just exploded. So go ahead, Abby.
Yeah, no, just a question maybe you guys could answer is, when do you find out about bursaries?
So that's a good question. Typically, your bursaries will be confirmed prior to the start of the term. So I do recommend that you try and get this organized in advance, because you definitely want to have your awards and scholarships confirmed before the due dates. So if you're an undergrad student, you would have to visit Student Central. They would help you with awards and bursaries. They can help you with what you're eligible for and confirm your funding there. If you're a graduate student, you would go to graduate studies, and the department graduate funding would help you there. So that's the best way to get help with the awards and the scholarships and sort of figure out what you might be eligible for. Once your funding is confirmed, you would be able to see it on your portal. So that's the important part, is just to make sure everything's confirmed before the deadline. So then that way you know if there's an amount that you have to pay, or if you can just let the scholarships pay your account.
Awesome, thank you.
Awesome. So I'm going to flip us to the next slide, but if you have a question, please feel free to keep adding it to that Q&A box, and we'll continue to answer them throughout the evening. So Samson and Chris, I think this is one of your slides talking about the $11 million in scholarships and bursaries.
So I think we in our office, we don't really do much with the awards and applying them to the account. So I don't know if you would have more information about how that side of the funding works.
Apologies, sorry there. My screen was not wanting to take my mute or my camera back on, so I was kind of desperately trying to jump in and answer you there, Samson. Yeah, so as that link in the chat that I just sent to everyone, if you open it up, it takes you to our entrance scholarship. So like I said at the beginning, we give away over $11 million in scholarships, bursaries, and awards every year. These scholarships, awards, and bursaries are free money for you. So they're money that you can use towards your tuition here at Lakehead. There's also additional ways to look into funding. So things like our work study program and our Destination Lakehead bursary. So our work study program allows students to work on campus while they are at Lakehead and to continue to get job and work experience while they're on the campus itself. So the way that work study works is you apply for a position within one of the departments at Lakehead, and you get to come on as a student worker and be paid for your time, but you also come on with the understanding that you are a student first and an employee second, which really means that you have a lot of help with your schedule. I know for a lot of people, one of the main struggles working throughout their undergraduate career is not being able to get time off during exams, or not being able to switch their shifts when they've got a new class schedule, things like that. With our work study program, you are seen as a student first. So we really work with you to make sure that you have the ability to attend your classes, to study for your exams, all of that good stuff. Our Destination Lakehead bursary is another one of our bursaries, and that's money to help fund you to come for a campus visit on either our campus in Aurelia or in Thunder Bay. And I'm going to ask Abby if she wouldn't mind dropping the link to that into the chat as well. So international entrance scholarships. Chris or Samson, would you feel free to jump in, or I'll just keep going. But domestic entrance scholarships, or for students who achieve above an 80% average while they're studying in high school. So these are students that are coming directly from high school to Lakehead and that have an average of above an 80 in their grade 12, 6 U or M courses. It's on a tiered scale from there. So if you have an 80 to an 84%, you're in a specific tier. If you have a 90 to a 94.9%, you're in a specific tier of the scholarship grade. Whatever tier you come in on is the tier that you stay on throughout your time at Lakehead. There's no tier jumping. So it's really based on your high school marks. So if we have any grade 12s in the webinar this evening, this is your encouragement to finish strong, to keep the senioritis at bay just a while longer, so that you can get the most bang for your buck with those grades that you're working so hard for. Now, of course, the big one is that if you have a 95% or over, we offer a renewable free tuition package. Now, the tuition is going to be renewable each year as long as you then keep your average above a 90% once you are at Lakehead. So come in at a 95, keep it at a 90, and you'll keep getting that free tuition each year. Chris, I think I'm going to pass it over to you, I believe, to talk about international entrance scholarships. Is that correct?
Yeah, I could touch on it briefly. I mean, it's the same. It's based, from what I understand, it's based on the your average coming into the university.
Perfect. Yeah, no, exactly. So pretty straightforward. If we have any specific questions about international scholarships, feel free to drop them in the chat as well too. So my awards, we kind of already talked about already, but that is our internal Lakehead database of external scholarships that you can apply for as a Lakehead student, and it'll be available through your Lakehead account, I believe at the beginning of August. Now, we always like to recommend for students to check the My Awards portal twice a year. So try to check it in the summer and the the early and late fall, because scholarships are going to change and going to have different deadlines, and then try to check it again in the spring. Just so that you can keep your eye on all the opportunities available for you. Now, we've touched on a wide variety of ways to fund your education here tonight, but let's talk about some additional funding sources that you may or may not be thinking about. So some of the big ones are going to be employment, specifically campus employment. So that work-study program that I mentioned earlier, the jobs are going to be posted in mid-August and close in mid-October. So mid-August is before a lot of us will actually be on campus. So keep your eye on the Lakehead job board this summer to see what is coming up. In the spring, summer, the jobs are going to be posted early March and close in early May. And again, you want to keep your eye on these jobs. A lot of these jobs are going to give you different levels of experience than what you could get in a typical off-campus part-time job. We have students who've acted as research assistants. We've had students who've worked on our social media, so many different cool and neat experiences that not only help you grow in your academic career, but also help you grow professionally, so that when you are done with your undergraduate career and you're looking maybe to go into full-time employment, you have a ready-built resume ready to go. Government student grants and loans are also available. I know that we had a few questions this evening about the Learn and Stay grant for nursing students. There are other grants and loans available as well too. And of course, we talked about the big whammy of the one, OSAP. A student line of credit can also be something that you utilize, your own personal savings and external funding opportunities, specific websites that contain information on hundreds of different funding opportunities, including YConic and Scholarships Canada, or perhaps your workplace or your parents' workplace or an association you're part of or something your family member is a part of. They might also have grants available to you as well. So when you're applying for funding opportunities, best practice is to establish a file to keep track of all your applications. So all the award requirements, details, all the volunteer and leadership accomplishments and experiences and reference letters that you'll need. I find a lot of the times, I know for myself, when somebody asks me a question on a scholarship application, I kind of freeze up and go, oh, I don't know. But if you have that handy dandy little file for you with all of the great things that you've been doing, it's nice and easy to pull from them, and it makes applying to a lot of different scholarships a lot more easier. And then just like you would with any application, make sure you're really reviewing the criteria carefully and massaging your wording to align with the criteria of that. And really just prepare your application like you would for a job interview. Make sure you know what you're applying for and you're mirroring that in your letters. And keep a detailed budget to help with bursary applications as well too. Personally, I always like to remind students that when you're applying for funding opportunities, treat it kind of like you're taking on a part-time job in the next few months, an additional part-time job, because I know a lot of us are working this summer. And really be disciplined about it, because if you spend, let's say, 3 hours writing maybe a 6-page essay about your community involvement and somebody gives you $1,000 for it or more, that's a really, really good bang for your buck on that little exercise that you did there, and great money for your time spent. So we've touched a little bit about funding your education. Great ways to do that, again, are going to be on-campus jobs, where you're going to be maxed out at 10 hours per week for on-campus jobs, and job postings begin in August, and the employers work around your class schedule. There's also OSAP, which we talked about already, which is super exciting. Samson or Chris, were you wanting to add anything on the OSAP discussion?
Actually, yes, there was one thing that that we should mention. I'm sorry, Chris, if you mentioned it already, maybe I wasn't paying attention, but I did just want to say for any students who will be receiving out of province student aid, it is a little bit different how you would get your funding confirmed. So if you are within Ontario and you're receiving OSAP, your funding can be confirmed through Student Central. But if you're receiving out of province student aid, you would have to email our office a copy of your notice of assessment. So you would send that to accounts@lakeheadu.ca, and then we would confirm your funding within our office directly. In this way, your late or we would know to expect your funding as a payment towards your account. So you wouldn't be charged a late payment fee if your funding isn't going to be arriving until after the payment deadline. So it is really important. Just make sure if you are receiving out of province funding, and just take that notice of assessment right off your funding portal. You could even do a screenshot if you're from a province that doesn't give you an official document, and just email that to us and we'll confirm the funding for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Samson. So what is OSAP? I think is a great question to kick off with. So OSAP is an integrated program funded by both the federal and provincial governments, and it really provides financial assistance to students to help them with post-secondary studies. Now, back when I was in university, OSAP had started to get a bit of a bad reputation with students. However, I would like to just let everyone know that in the last few years, it's really been revamped as a process, and it's definitely worth applying for and seeing what funding is available to you before you make a decision on how you're going to proceed. So it is a needs-based assistance plan, and funding eligibility is determined based on your individual needs. Really important to remember, OSAP is supplemental. It's not a free ride to post-secondary, but it is designed to really help you with the cost of post-secondary. Ideally, you're going to be pulling from a wide variety of sources to help fund your undergraduate career, and we've kind of already highlighted a few of those. Another really important thing to remember is you're going to need to reapply for OSAP every year. It's not a one and done. So keep that in mind throughout your educational journey at Lakehead. So students are automatically considered for both loans and non-repayable grants when they apply to OSAP, and students can also choose to receive a grant-only funding on their application. Most opt out of the loans each application. You must opt out of the loans each application, so they don't carry forward necessarily. So who is eligible for OSAP? Well, you're going to be eligible for OSAP if you're a Canadian citizen and a permanent resident or a protected person. You're an Ontario resident. You're attending or entering an OSAP approved program in school, which Lakehead is, and enrolled in or entering a certificate, degree, or diploma program that is a minimum of 12 weeks in length. So funding is going to be determined on the student's personal financial situation, the parental income, the size of the family, your personal income and savings, so you as a student, any major scholarships you might have been awarded, and if you're living at home versus living away from home for the first time. So funding, again, is kind of determined through this great little chart here. The amount of OSAP a student can receive really depends on their unique situation. So just because you know your friend got XYZ amount doesn't mean that you will necessarily get the same. It's very much based on personal circumstance. Chris or Samson, anything to add on this? All good? All good. Awesome. I saw you both kind of nodding and I was like, either I'm doing right or I just missed something. So how much funding can you receive through OSAP is a question students usually like to ask. And I totally get it. We all want to kind of get the most possible, but OSAP has a maximum amount of aid that an individual can receive. So for a full-time single student at a public college or university in Ontario, a student can receive up to $405 per week. And a typical academic year is going to be about 32 weeks in length. So the money is going to be provided to you up front. We kind of heard a little bit about that when we were talking about how you're actually going to pay with OSAP. So you usually will get your first OSAP installment in September and your second OSAP installment in January. OSAP funding from each installment will be automatically applied against students' tuition and mandatory fees at their post-secondary institution. And this will help students really get a sense of the amount of OSAP funding that they're going to get towards their tuition and how much they owe the school after subtracting that OSAP funding. So Samson, I believe, showed us some really great examples of how that works and what that looks like. So we know that once we get our OSAP funding, it's going to be compared to our student fees, and some math is going to happen in the background, and we're going to find out if we have either overpaid or underpaid and need to pay a little bit more. So how do we apply to OSAP? Well, the process is one of those things that seems a lot harder than it is. It is really quite simple. The main thing is making sure you apply nice and early. So when you apply for college or university through the OUAC, so the Ontario University Application Center, you'll be directed to the OSAP website. You need to click register if you're a new user and create your OSAP profile. It's going to ask you to complete an application, and you're going to need to gather all the required supporting documentation and upload it through your application. You're then going to complete the MSFAA. So the Master Student Financial Assistance Agreement is your lifetime loan agreement, and track the status of your application online. So common questions about OSAP, RESPs. I know that's already come up this evening. So families are not required to report their RESPs, withdrawals during the application process. Now, scholarships and award, you don't need to report anything received from an Ontario college or university if the institution informs the student in writing that the award will be reported to OSAP directly on their behalf. If no notification is received from OSAP in writing, then it's on you to report it. So a few more common questions that come up. Employment during the academic year. So it's going to ask you to not make more than $5,600 or $11,200 a year. Now, another question I think we've already had in the Q&A tonight is, what do you do if your parents are separated and divorced? So you're going to provide details of parents who hold the primary custody of the child or of the student who was you. And if shared custody, the student is advised to complete the full-time OSAP application. by reporting the income information of the parent and their spouse, if applicable, who they currently live with or they last lived with before moving away to go to school. If parents have remarried or they're in a common law relationship, the parent's partner's income will also be considered from there as well too. Okay, so repaying your OSAP loans. So in the first 6 months after you graduate or leave full-time studies, you don't need to make any payment on your loans, and interest will accumulate on your student loan. You need to start paying off your student loan 6 months after you leave school. And if you are having trouble making your required payments, you could be eligible for repayment assistance, which is definitely good to know. So to get started on all of this, head to the osap.ca website to start your application, and you can get going from there on all of this really exciting and important stuff. So important dates to keep in mind from a financial aid perspective. Well, the entrance and travel bursary is due on June 30th, 2023. The initial round of entrance bursary offers close on April 15th or closed on April 15th, with the final round occurring on June 30th. So if you've been approved for a travel bursary, you'll be credited to the qualified account at Lakehead University. My Awards, so that's that scholarship portal that I was talking about, opens on August 15th, 2023. And most applications for that kind of first chunk of applications close in October or close on October 15th, 2023. Work study applications open August 15th, 2023, and you need to complete that eligibility form and be approved before applying to jobs. Each job is also going to have its own unique closing date. That felt like a lot of information. Please, if you have any questions, go ahead and start putting them into the Q&A. Abby, are there any outstanding ones that we should go ahead and answer, or should we move on and come back with just keeping an eye on the time?
Yeah, I think you guys should just wrap up the presentation, and then, if we have any time in the next 8 minutes to do the live Q&A, we can, but we'll just kind of keep working behind the scenes.
Okay, awesome. And big shout out to Chris, Sampson, and Abby, who I can see frantically typing and responding to your questions. Thank you so much for that. We all appreciate it. So what are your next steps? Well, I gave you some important dates already, but the ones that I really want to drive home right now is June 1st was your deadline to accept your offer, and June 30th is when our entrance bursary deadlines are done. If you have made it this far in the process and you haven't yet checked out our campuses, I totally encourage you to try and book a campus tour. We offer campus tours pretty much every work day of the week on our campuses in Aurelia and Thunder Bay. And what's also kind of cool is we offer virtual tours. So if you're not able to take the time off school or work right now, but you still want to check us out, you can watch a virtual tour online. It's super interactive and just gives you a ton of information. So completely recommend using that to your advantage before you come on campus in the fall. Another really big thing is checking us out on social media. We keep these channels really well updated. So if you're interested, you can find us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, etc. And we're at My Lakehead on all major platforms. I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to join us this evening. I know this has been a lot of information. I know I've said that already, but it truly is a lot of new information for us all to digest. So thank you for bearing with us, asking your questions, and being engaged throughout this evening. We are going to probably we are going to start wrapping up. So if you have a Q&A, or if you have a question rather, please go ahead and put it in the Q&A box and we'll try to answer a few of them live. Once it hits 7 o'clock, we're going to end additional questions. And if your question hasn't been answered, we will be working in the background trying to get you a written response. If you're like me, and you're probably going to go have your dinner this evening and be getting ready for bed, brushing your teeth and go, oh my goodness, I wish I had asked XYZ. Please know that you can reach out to us with your questions after this evening. You can always email recruit@lakeheadu.ca with anything that might come to you after. Now, Abby, are there any kind of question themes that we're getting this evening? Sorry, Abby, I just was having some trouble hearing you there.
Sorry about that. Yeah. Honestly, they're just very personal questions, so I don't feel like we need to answer them live. One of the questions, yeah, something about residents. So I might just link the website to residents, but for anyone that's listening, the residents fees are due August 19th. So I know I've kind of had to copy and paste that a few times now, but August 15th is the residents deadline. So that's really a common one that's coming up. Other than that, I know someone talked a little bit more about out of province aid. So if anyone wants to touch on out of province financial aid. And I think that's about it.
Awesome. Samson or Chris, would you like to add anything on out of province aid? I know we touched on it a little bit, but.
For out of province student aid, unfortunately, we're not too familiar with the application process, so you could reach out to Student Central for assistance with that, although I do think it differs by province. So like for our office, the piece that we handle is mostly how your funding would be confirmed. So as I said earlier, like that would be sending us your notice of assessment once you receive that from your funding, and then we would put that on file for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. So we'll keep answering these questions that are coming in and keep clearing through the inbox. But I just want to take a moment to say thank you again to Chris and Samson for joining us this evening and lending their expertise. And thank you to Abby for just absolutely crushing the Q&A box tonight. I feel like every time I went to answer a question, she was on it. So thank you for that. And thank you to all of you for taking the time to join us. Thanks and have a great night.